I'm fascinated by the introduction of new plants into home gardens. Now, in the old days, it used to be the great plant hunters travelling the world, looking for species and then bringing them, eventually ending up in garden centres and in your backyard. But in more modern times, it's been all about plant hybridisation, new plant species that are just hybrids, naturally occurring, starting to arrive in our garden centres. These new and improved forms have better flower, better shape, better form, and 9 times out of 10, they're far easier to look after as well. So when it comes to seeing Australian native plant varieties change, kangaroo paws and another West Australian beauty, the waxflower, have seen enormous change in recent years. And I've headed into WA's Midwest to a company that's leading the innovation of waxflower breeding for cut flower and home garden shrub purposes. Adrian Parsons is the Managing Director of Helix Australia.
Helix is an Australian-owned company and we specialise in the breeding, marketing and licensing of new varieties of waxflower and boronia.
WA's wildflowers are world famous and everyone has admired a Geraldton wax at some point in the past. But these plants are changing with improved shrub shape and form, making them more ideal for home gardens and even better as cut flowers.
We're at the forefront of genetics, working very closely with Kings Park Botanical Gardens, who are using very advanced breeding techniques to come up with new colours and varieties.
And the flowers have changed quite dramatically?
Yeah, so hybrids coming through the system now. We've got double flowers, we've got much larger bloom size, we've got some multicoloured flowers, and the future will be potentially double the size of an existing Geraldton waxflower.
I think one of the things that people used to sort of view a Geraldton wax as is a very large, gangly kind of shrub as it got older. But the way you treat them these days is actually quite different, isn't it? You're not scared to cut them back.
You can cut back a Geraldton wax plant very hard. So let it flower the whole season, possibly pick the flowers for the vase inside, but at the end of the season, you can go with a hedger even, and that'll put on new growth next year.
And, you know, when it comes to selections of plants, you're also selecting nice compact forms, which are probably better suited to smaller gardens?
Yeah, so the next wave of hybrids we're working with at the moment will be waxflower plants that can work in a rockery or a hedging environment, or also some very narrow plants for a side pathway of a house that can be trimmed up.
One benefit, apart from the spectacular flower production right through the winter and into spring, is the benefit it brings to native wildlife, such as birds who love these plants for both nesting purposes and nectar supply in the dead of winter, but also bees who can get a great food source when most others haven't appeared yet.
So this is a variety we've identified that's got some real food applications, Trevor.
Okay.
If you just grab a leaf and have a bite, it's got a really strong citrus flavour to it. And we've got some leading restaurants in Melbourne and Adelaide and Perth who are using it with meat, with lamb, with seafood. The native food space is very strong at the moment, so we're going to do some research in that area.
Interesting. What are your top, say, 3 varieties that you'd recommend people look at putting into their own home gardens?
Right now, Trevor, Sarah's Delight, which is a large pink flower. Dee's Delight, which is slightly bigger than Sarah and flowers just a little bit later. And a beautiful white variety called Moonlight Delight. Very large flower and a beautiful red bud on it also.
Right.